You're listening to episode 413 of the Fit in Real Life podcast. And today I am going to be sharing, something that's been on my mind for a long time. A podcast I've been trying to record for a while, but have not yet. And today I'm going to do it because it is requiring me to be vulnerable and to tell you things that I don't always talk about. But I think it's important because sometimes we go through things in silence and we think that we're the only ones, and we're not. Actually, I had a conversation with my sister the other day. We went out for a walk, and she was telling me that sometimes when she feels things, or she has these thoughts, or she's struggling with something, she will write down those words into Reddit just so that she can pull up other conversations or chats about that topic to realize that she is not the only one. I thought that was actually quite brilliant because even though intellectually we know that other people in this world of 8 billion people probably have felt the way we felt or struggle with the same thing we struggle with, it can feel very, very alone. And so about 6 months now ago, maybe a bit more than that, I started going to a counselor. I had been thinking about going to a counselor for different parts of my life or in different parts of my life. And once I booked one appointment and really did not resonate with that person, and I never went back, and I'm like, oh, it doesn't work. I don't like counselors. But I found someone who I really, really like. And today I want to share with you some of the big takeaways that I've had from my therapy journey. I had three major lessons. They're more like five now. And just to give you a bit of an insight into what I've learned, and I do so much of this work elsewhere, like through reading, through learning, through courses, through my own coaching. But going through therapy one on one with somebody has been absolutely life changing for me. So, my goal for therapy when I saw my therapist was to feel more calm and peaceful and joyful in life. I felt like there was always this dark cloak over me where I had this like love and light and shine inside, but then there was always something on top, like this sort of armor of stress. And I had a hard time just letting people in. And I could speak things very openly, and I can share lots of intimate details very openly with close friends or on this podcast. But there was some sort of blockage there where I didn't really feel that connection. I never really allowed people to get really close to me, even though I can verbalize things. I was still always having this guard. So I want to feel more light. I want to feel more calm, more peaceful, more joyful. And as it turns out, that wasn't my real goal, or that's what I thought was my goal, but that's not what I'm getting out of therapy. Instead, it's been a journey to being more whole. And that is now my guiding light, not to just always feel calm and peaceful, joyful, but to feel more whole. So today I want to share with you five, there might be more than five now as I record this, but five main takeaways that have really helped me to feel more whole in my life. Now, the first part is this realization that because things happen to me, it doesn't make me the victim. And I I have such a strong value of personal responsibility. And I really did not want to admit that I had some things happen to me in life that might have affected me because that felt to me like blaming, like I was becoming the victim. And I did not want to be the victim. And so instead, what I did is I just always took those things and be like, oh, it wasn't so bad, not a big deal, happens to everyone, without really taking the time and pausing and realizing that the small things and sometimes the bigger things that I experienced in my life might have affected me. And they still continue to show up in patterns and tendencies that I have now. And so I realized that I don't have to choose between either taking personal responsibility and not being the victim and accepting that other things have happened to me in my life through mostly through childhood and as a teenager. That's when a lot of these things happen. I also felt that if I recognized or I admitted that some things happened to me or some things were said or not said or things, especially as a childhood, as a child, that it would mean that I was blaming my parents or my caregivers or someone else for something that happened to me. And I'm so loyal. I am fiercely loyal and protective of the people I love. And so I didn't want to admit to my therapist that, yeah, like, maybe some things happened to me in childhood that could have been a little bit different. I've kind of I had a wonderful childhood, but we all go through things. And I've learned that I can accept, I can admit, I can share, I can just come to terms so that some things have happened to me or not happened to me, or said or not said. Um, and I can still love everyone just as much. Nothing has to tarnish the relationship. I don't have to blame other people. I don't have to make myself the victim just because something else happened to me. I hope that makes sense. I know my perspective is not everyone's perspective. Some people have no issues with this, but I had a really hard time even just accepting that I might need help because of some things that happened to me, because I was so fiercely loyal and protective and I did not want to be the victim. So I've learned that there is this duality that I can accept that things happen to me and I can still love my family. I can still know that they did the best that they can all the time, that they had great intentions, and that we all made mistakes. And that right now, as a parent, to think that I'm not going to do things to my son or say things or not say things that is going to affect him is just, is completely bogus. Like I'm going to. So I think sometimes as parents, maybe the best thing we can do is just have a little fund saved up so we can send our children to therapy as well. The key takeaway number two for me, this has been a tough one, is that there is no 3-step process or 5-step process. I am very much a problem solver and a doer. And when things come up, if I have some problem that comes up, I want to clearly identify the problem and then I want to go through the 3 steps to solve it. And I realized that for a lot of things, there was no 3-step process, there was no 5-step process. And that was so frustrating for me because I just wanted to solve. I wanted the check boxes. And that was a key takeaway that I really needed to get through so that I could slow down and actually go through the process. And it took me a little while for that because I just want to rush through things and like get it done because I'm a doer. But apparently, therapy, at least with my therapist, it wasn't like that. It was more slowing down and feeling, which was really, really uncomfortable, especially because I'm like, I don't want to feel, I don't want to do. So, those were the two things that I had to learn and get through, even to get anything out of therapy. I had to learn to realize that I can accept and share, and I'm not going to be the victim, and that I need to slow down, that there is no clear 3-step process or 5-step process to solve some of the things. I wanted the 3-step process to feel more calm, joyful, and peaceful. Tell me what to do, and I'll do it. All right, big takeaways here. The first one, and this was really, really big, was starting to really love and accept my dark side. My dark side. And when I think about the dark side, I think about the things that I don't want, the things that in the past I would judge and not accept. And it was really hard to even find out what those things are because I just thought that they weren't good. I didn't even think of them as being something that I should learn to love and accept, or that I should maybe even that I didn't accept them because they just were things I didn't want. And so when I think about the dark side, I think about the things, the behaviors, the patterns, the feelings that I don't want in my life. And I am not very mean to myself. My self-talk is not, inherently like negative, or I don't say things like, "Oh, Tanya, you're a big fat slob on the couch," or anything like that. Or look at you, you're so like useless. I don't say things like that. I'm actually quite kind to myself. But what I would do is I would unknowingly judge myself. I would judge those dark sides because it wasn't living my best life. Remember, my goal, I want to feel more joyful, more calm, more peaceful. So anything that took away from that, I did not want. I would try to push away. I would not accept it. And I realized through a lot of work with my therapist, and it was so helpful to go through someone, to walk through someone who's living, breathing, who can listen to what I had to say and call me out and, pause me and dive a little bit deeper when she could tell my nervous system was elevated because I didn't even know I was doing it. It was so subconscious because my goal was love and light, was calm and joy, was peacefulness. And so everything else I would just shut away and I would try to push away and I would judge it. And I wouldn't say mean things to it, but I would definitely judge it. I would not accept it because it is not was not in alignment with my goal of being calm and peaceful and joyful. Two examples of this, and there was lots of examples of this. But sometimes when I feel a little bit stressed, or I'm just not as connected, I feel like this wall comes up. And I'm a very visual thinker, and I can picture this wall. And my therapist asked me to describe the wall, and I described it just with my face scrunched up in disgust, how the wall was kind of gray and kind of concrete color. And, it was just like the kind of wall that might be underground somewhere, like in the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle movies. It wasn't a beautiful wall. And she asked me more about that wall and what the wall's doing and everything and how it feels in my body when it comes up. And we recognize, and this is a very, very common theme in therapy and definitely in my experience, that pretty much everything was there to protect me. And that wall was there to protect me. And when I stopped judging it, when I stopped hating on it, when I just accepted that it was there, that I didn't have to do anything about it. And I even gave it a name. His name was Wally. And I recognized that Wally's there to protect me. And that when Wally comes up, I now actually tell Keith, I'm like, I'm feeling a little bit like my wall's coming up. And paradoxically, when I accept that, when I accept it's there, its power is reduced. It's not as big of a deal anymore. I think sometimes like I'm in water and I have this big beach ball and I'm trying to hold this beach ball underwater. I'm trying to push it down. I'm trying to keep it down. I don't want to see it. I don't want it part of my life. And there's so much energy that goes into pushing this beach ball down, to getting it down, to never coming up. And it takes so much energy. And now I am tied up from doing other things in life because I'm holding on with so much strength, so much of my energy, so much of my power to bringing this beach ball underneath water. Whereas if I just let it go, it sort of comes to the surface and then sort of just drifts away. And so that's an example with my wall. When my wall comes up, I'm like, oh, there's my wall. And I thank it. Sometimes I talk to it. I ask what it needs. Sometimes you can just recognize that that wall comes up because something happened to you in childhood, and your nervous system. Another thing I learned, which I found so helpful, doesn't have a timeline. Your nervous system doesn't know that now I am 42, whereas maybe something happened to me when I was 8 years old or 12 years old. It doesn't know that. It doesn't have a timeline. And so recognizing that that wall is a gift, that wall is something that's there to protect me. That wall is so wonderful and so helpful in so many different ways. So instead of hating on it and judging it and criticizing it because it's not allowing me to feel calm and joy and peaceful, I can start to love it. I can start to appreciate it. And paradoxically, when I do that, it's just there. And that ball is just now up to the surface. It kind of floats away. It's kind of there. It's not a big deal. And I am freed up in my life. And it is so, so amazing. Another example of this is sometimes I go through ebbs and flows of how much I desire sex, my sexual desire, drive, whatever you want to call it. By the way, one of my favorite books that I've read, my most helpful books, is called Come As You Are. If you ever struggle with kind of off and on libido and we think something's wrong with us or we wish things were different, I found that book to be so, so helpful. But let's say there's a time in my life for whatever reason. Maybe it's hormonal, maybe I'm busy, maybe I'm stressed out, maybe I'm just not focused on it, and I just don't feel very sexual. And then sometimes then I judge myself about it. And then I tell myself things like, well, I'm not feminine enough. Or then maybe I make it about my relationship. Maybe it's something wrong with my relationship with Keith. Maybe I'm not attracted to him enough. Maybe it's like something wrong there. Instead of just being like, it's just is. Maybe right now I'm just not feeling as sexual as I could be, or as sometimes I am. I won't say as I could be, which is true, I guess, as I could be. And it just is. And when I just let it go and don't make it an issue because it's a non issue, then I'm freed up. And you know what happens when I'm freed up? I have more tendencies to be more sexual because I'm not so stressed out about it all the time. Just like when we are stressed out about not being able to sleep, we don't sleep because we're stressed out. And so it's so counterproductive, this sort of judging ourselves, this wishing things were different. And I have learned that when I start to love and appreciate the things that in the past I would say I don't want, and right now, some of those things too, like, maybe intellectually, if my wall was never there, sure, it'd be awesome. Or if I was always like, interested in being intimate when the time was right, that'd be awesome. But it's not my life right now. So instead of fighting reality, I have learned just to come to accept it. And that has freed me up to sometimes make the necessary changes if required. But it becomes so much easier to make the changes because I'm not judging it. I'm not spending all my energy trying to keep that beach ball underneath water with such a tight grip. So I have found that it's so essential to integrate all parts of myself rather than suppressing them, and recognizing that my goal is not to feel more joyful and calm and peaceful and happy all the time. It's to be whole. And what I was doing, and I think I'm going to get on this in another key takeaway, is I was trying to cherry pick my emotions. I was saying, well, this is okay. It's okay to feel peaceful and joy and calm and hopeful and inspired. And if I feel like, these kind of more negative emotions, that's not okay. And so by trying to cherry pick my emotions, I was not really feeling anything anyway. I was just numbing myself out. And so now I'm allowing myself to appreciate and love the things that in the past I would say are the things that I don't want, and recognize that they are part of me as well. And they also deserve love and appreciation and attention. And that has been absolutely, absolutely life changing for me, and so hard to do because it feels like if I love and appreciate it, then it's going to be there forever. It's never going to change. But man, is it freeing? And life is so much easier now that I don't have such a death grip on trying to keep those emotions and those negative parts underwater. Key takeaway number 2 or 3, number 2. Let's do number 2. No, it's number 4 actually, isn't it? Because the first 2 are bonus small ones. Here's the big one. So key takeaway number 4 is the importance of self-awareness and blind spots. And this was really hard for me because I'm a very, very self-aware person. I do lots of journaling. I reflect a lot. I'm very introspective. I think a lot. I'm aware of my own things, like my own tendencies, quite well. Quite well, is that a word? I feel like I need to edit this podcast and make sure that I'm not saying anything too grammatically incorrect. But I am very self-aware. But I think that if we say we're very self-aware, we already have blind spots because there are things that we all do that we're not aware of. And it's like if you are in a glass jar, you can't read the label. You are in it. You can't see it. You can't see the outside. And so I actually had a really hard time at the beginning because I did intellectually know so many things that we were doing. I just needed someone living, breathing to walk through me to recognize the things in myself, because I am really good at seeing it in other people, coaching other people. It's so, so, so helpful to have somebody else who's listening to you, who's seeing your journey, who's walking with your journey, and they can call things out for you. We all have blind spots, and there is no shame, there's no weakness in it. Like I think I kind of had that perception that if I needed someone else to tell me, what I was doing wrong or what needs to be changed, that was a bit of a weakness. I should be able to do it myself. Not true. Not true at all. So helpful. So get a coach, get a mentor, seek a therapist, whatever you're going to do. Like I find it so, so helpful. And it's been a really great experience. So I think that with this, if we have these blind spots, they really keep us from fully evolving. So you could do things like journaling, reflecting, being honest with yourself, asking yourself questions, but also get a coach, work with somebody. And if my podcast resonates with you, and my coaching kind of that you've listened to on the podcast resonates with you, reach out. We can talk more about that, what that could look like as well. But I find it so helpful to have somebody else to look at what's going on for you. Another analogy is, let's say you're lost in a forest and you look around and all you see is trees, you don't know which way to go. Having a coach, having a therapist, having someone to work with is like that bird's eye view of everything. So they're sitting up in the helicopter looking down and be like, oh yeah, just take 2 steps to the right and you're out of the forest there. Whereas when you're in it, it's just so hard to find out which direction to go. And then the last takeaway, and there's been so many takeaways, so many aha moments. I go to my sessions and sometimes I don't think I even need a session because I'm not working on anything. Everything's fine. And then, man, some of those sessions are just so profound and so transformational. But the last one is what it actually means to feel my emotions. And so I'm very good at intellectualizing things personally. I can think about things a lot. Feeling them is a whole different story. And so I realized that I have been really good at intellectualizing feelings, But one of the things I wanted is I wanted to feel more. I wanted to be more in my day. I had this visualization where life was happening and there's lots of great things happening in my life. I just wanted to feel it. I wanted to enter into my day. Sometimes it felt like I was sort of going through the motions or watching life through the sidelines instead of actually being in life. And so, what I was doing, well, one thing is I was cherry picking my emotions and trying to only feel the positive emotions. And by only feeling the positive emotions, I was numbing out all the emotions. So I wasn't actually feeling anything. But I wasn't taking the time to actually feel how things felt in my body. I realized that's what feeling means is where does it feel in your body? Do I feel it in my gut? Do I feel it in my shoulders? Do I feel it in my left hip? Does it feel like expansive? Does it feel like my heart has armor on it? How does it feel? And that has been really helpful. My therapist, her name is Kim. She does a really good job of slowing me down quite often and asking me how, like, where I feel things in the body. And I find that so hard to do. It's getting better, but I wouldn't say I'm good at it at all because I've never done that before. I'm actually kind of brand new at it. I can intellectually know what sadness feels like. And yes, the really big emotions I can feel, but how does it feel when I'm like kind of just bored? Where does that feel in my body? I know I'm bored, but where does it feel? And that has really, really helped me to just sit with emotions and to feel them and recognize that they don't have to be fixed all the time. I know I say this all the time. And there's one thing, there's a difference between saying it and fully, fully, fully doing it. And that's been a big change. And so now I do my best to accept my feelings as best as I can. I think sometimes there's this fear too that if we accept our feelings, then we're not going to change them, and we're just gonna they're gonna like run our lives, and we're gonna be little puppets. And if we feel sad, we're gonna be sad all day, and that's not true. And paradoxically, when we actually allow ourselves to feel things, they actually work through us a lot faster than if we try to bottle them up. Another really good book that I read alongside with my doing my therapy, I've read it I think 3 or 4 times now. I read it again. Is called The Language of Emotions. The Language of Emotions. I recommend her audiobook. I really like her audiobook. I like the way that she speaks. I like it's very conversational. It feels like you're having a conversation with her, and it's actually quite funny. Yeah, I really liked her. So, The Language of Emotions is the book. I highly recommend that if you want to dive a little bit deeper into feeling your emotions. I found that really helpful. All right. Those are so far the big takeaways of my therapy. And every session is different. Every session has big ahas and they're mind blowing and like they've transformed my life. However, these are the common themes that tend to sort of be the threads through all of my sessions. Learning how to feel my emotions, not judging all the time, and just recognizing that we all have blind spots and it's okay, which is why it's important to get help. All right, my friends, that is it for today. Thank you so much for listening to the Fit in Real Life podcast. I know there are many podcasts out there, many amazing podcasts out there, and it means the world to me that you're taking the time to listen to this show. And if you have any topics or suggestions, anything you'd like me to speak on, ways I can help, please let me know because this is your show. And if you're loving the podcast, a couple things you can do. Number one, make sure you subscribe to the podcast so you never miss an episode. Number two, you can leave a review on iTunes. That does help the podcast be found. And number three, if you can share it with a friend, either via just a direct share or you can post it to social media and share that way. Thank you so much. Your help is so appreciated, and I will talk to you next week.